Welcome everybody to Laying the Points with Luca Rosano. I'm your host, Luca Rosano, live from the Parlay Studios, as we got plenty to talk about in what's sure to be a busy night in the NBA. We're going to be looking at the Raptors, of course. They look to push this series to 7 as they are on the doorstep of potentially making NBA history. We're going to be taking a look at the Warriors' championship odds following their Game 5 win against the Nuggets. We're going to be taking a look at some stuff going on with the Lakers. Lakers in shambles right now. And we're going to conclude with my best picks against the spread for tonight's NBA games. But we're going to start by recapping my picks from last night. I went 1-1. So I got the Bulls wrong. I thought the Bulls were going to keep it close. They got blown out. DeMar DeRozan, you hate to see it. His postseason woes continued. But overall, I think the Bulls are happy about this season that they had. I mean, considering not a lot of people had them even making the playoffs, they were able to win a game. That's something Brooklyn can't say. But all in all, they weren't able to cover the spread, so that's the one I got wrong. The one I got right, the Nuggets, they were looking to do what the Raptors did and force a sixth game after going down 3-0. And it looked like they might have won that game in Golden State. But then the Warriors, fourth quarter, they outscored the Nuggets. And, they lost the game, but at least they covered the plus 8.5 point spread. So 1-1 going into tonight's slate of games, but we are going to start today's show by previewing the biggest game in the city, the thing that everybody's talking about. The Toronto Raptors taking on the Philadelphia 76ers in Toronto. Scotiabank Arena is going to be popping. Jurassic Park is going to be wild. I'm going to be there covering it for the parlay, doing some streeters. So if you see me down there, say hi. But what can I say about this one? History is on the line. If the Raptors win tonight, they will become just the fourth team ever in NBA history to force a Game 7 once going down 0-3. But they're going to have to do it again without their all-star. Fred VanVleet, doubtful, so he's probably not going to play tonight because he was doubtful last game and he did not play. But that hasn't been an issue for the Raptors. The Raptors have been able to overcome the loss of VanVleet, and we've seen how well that long, big lineup of McNurse's has done in, half of Game 4 and for all of Game 5. And you get the feeling going into this game that all the pressure is going on Philadelphia's side. I mean, you could just tell this team is rattled, and it starts with Doc Rivers. We're about to show you a clip, and tell me this doesn't look like a guy who's nervous going into the rest of the series.
Well, it's easy to use me as an example, but I wish y'all would tell the whole story with me, all right? My Orlando team was the HC. No one gives me credit for getting up against the Pistons who won the title. That was an HC. Go look at that. I want you to go back and look at that roster. I dare you to go back and look at that roster, and you would say, what a hell of a coaching job. Really. I mean, the Clipper team that we lost 3-1. Chris Paul didn't play in the first 2 games and was playing on one leg. And we didn't have home court. And then the last one, to me, is the one we blew. That's the one I said, we blew that. Now, it was in the bubble. And anything could happen in the bubble. There's no home court. Game 7 would have been in L.A., But it just happened. So I would say with me, some of them is I got to do better always. I always take my own responsibility. And then some of it is circumstances happen. This one, let's win it, and we don't have to talk about it.
I mean, Doc Rivers, he has the resume where he chokes. This is a guy who's the only coach in NBA history to blow 3 3-1 leads. He's something like 10 of his last 11 losing in a potential closeout game. He can't get it done. And I hear other people saying it's on the players, and I agree with that. Half of it does have to fall on the players. But at some point, you got to make the correlation to all these choke jobs going back to the coach. Doc Rivers, instead of dismissing the noise and saying, you know what, all we got to do is win one, this guy tried to backpedal and tried to make excuses for why those previous teams blew those 3-1 leads. I couldn't believe it. And Sixers fans couldn't believe it either. You got one coach who looks rattled, and then you got the other coach in Nick Nurse who looks calm, cool, and collected as he motivated his group going into this whole comeback mode, saying somebody's got to do it, and if there's going to be a group that can do it, it's going to be us. So you tell me which coach you would rather have going into Game 6 tonight. And you look at the Raptors, they need a great performance from Pascal Siakam. This is a guy that I called out after Game 3. He laid an egg along with Fred VanVleet, but then he bounced back. He had a great Game 4 and a great Game 5. And I said coming into the series, Pascal Siakam needed to be the best player on the court for the Raptors to have the chance to win this series. And in the last two, he's looked like the best player. He's outplayed the MVP candidate in Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid has not looked the same. And I know people don't want to make a big issue of that thumb, saying that he's going to deal with it, play through it, but he looks like a different guy to me. Through the first 3 games, Embiid was averaging 27 points. Through the last 2 games, he just looks fatigued. He looks gassed. He doesn't look himself. That's advantage Raptors. Another big key for tonight's game, the Raptors bench. Precious Achiuwa alone outscored the entire Sixers bench last game. If the Raptors can continue to get that type of production from Achiuwa and other guys like Chris Boucher, the Raptors are going to be in the driver's seat tonight. And another thing I look to is the three-point shooting. The Raptors shot terribly from 3, yet they were able to blow out the Sixers in Philadelphia in Game 5. If that 3-ball starts falling tonight, the Sixers are in trouble because they're going to need their three-point shooters to come up big, and they did not look themselves. I mean, Danny Green had a couple threes, but overall, very inefficient. Niang didn't attempt many threes. No Thibault tonight, but, I mean, it's not like he was adding much to the Sixers' offense. And this is going to come down to the star play tonight as well. That's the final point I'm going to make here. I mean, you look at the 76ers, how is Joel Embiid going to respond? With his back up against the wall, this is his team. Which Embiid are we going to see? And another guy I look at is James Harden. The real James Harden has to step up. None of this passive James Harden. He's going to have to summon that Rockets James Harden. He's going to have to put the offensive burden on his shoulders. Because right now, guys like Tobias Harris and Danny Green are more of an offensive threat than James Harden. So he needs to come through for the Sixers. And then the X factor for the Sixers is going to be Tyrese Maxey. He was great in the first 2 games. He has not looked himself the last couple of games. And that's in large part to Fred not guarding him. The switches are really disrupting his flow, and that size that the Raptors bring having a negative impact on Maxey. And as for the Raptors, it's simple. You're going to have the home crowd in your corner. You're going to have home court advantage, and the pressure is on Philadelphia. You have nothing to lose. If you lose tonight, it's going down as a good season. If you win, you are literally 1 win away from becoming the one of being the first team ever to come back from 0-3 down. So you know those players are feeling it. You know those players are going to be coming out with high energy. And this is a game where I think the Raptors are going to get it done. I'm going to make my official pick later on in the show. But, man, Game 6 is going to be wild. Definitely don't want to miss it. One of the biggest games, I think, in Raptors history. I know they've had huge games with, NBA Finals, winning the championship, but this feels big just because history is on the doorstep. And again, no team has ever done this. The NBA has been in existence 75 years. For the Raptors to have a chance at that is pretty darn cool if you ask me. So we're going to see what happens later on tonight. The next thing I wanted to talk about, sticking with the NBA, are the Golden State Warriors. So this is a team in the Warriors. They're back in the playoffs, and they are clicking on all cylinders. This is a team that they outscored Denver 32-20 in the fourth quarter to beat the Nuggets in 5, and the Warriors went about their business. This is such a deep, lethal team that we saw last night. Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, the big 3, they didn't have stand-out games, but then a guy like Gary Payton III came up big, hitting clutch shots. The Warriors not only have star power, but they got guys, role players, who you got to worry about as well. Guys like Andrew Wiggins, Gary Payton III, Jordan Poole, who has been amazing for the Warriors, a Kuminga, who's going to continue to get better. It's so scary how good Golden State is. And they were bad for, a season, 2 seasons? And now these guys are back in the driver's seat, so much so that FanDuel has the Warriors listed as the favorite, as of today, to win the NBA title. So will they get it done? Do I have faith in this Warriors team to win the championship? I think this is accurate. I think if you had to pick a team right now to be in the driver's seat, to be the favorite to win the championship, it's got to be Golden State. I mean, you look at some of their numbers, the Warriors now have won 19 of 21 playoff series going back to 2015. This is a hard team to beat in a 7-game series. And this was the Warriors' first playoff win since 2019. But going back to the amount of talent that they have and proven gamers, guys like Stephen Curry who can just take over at a moment's notice. Klay Thompson can get hot. You got Draymond Green, one of the best defensive players in the league. I look at the West right now. The Warriors have to be the favorite to get out of the West. And then looking at what's going on in the East, the Warriors have to be the favorite of beating whoever comes out of the East as of today. I mean, this is a team that is dominant, and they've shown it throughout the season, and we're seeing it now in the playoffs as they beat a pretty good Nuggets team handedly. Now, granted, the Nuggets didn't have guys like Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., but they still had the MVP frontrunner. They had the reigning MVP, which, by the way, Jokic becomes the 5th MVP ever to lose in the first round. And they made this Nuggets team look pretty mediocre. So it's crazy to see what the Warriors are doing. And this is also in large part to what's going on with Phoenix. There's a lot of uncertainty there. I came into the playoffs saying that this is Phoenix's playoffs to lose. We look at Phoenix, a little bit of a scare in the first round. Devin Booker is now not 100%. The Warriors don't have any major health concerns. They're getting healthy at the right time. They're clicking at the right time. And you look at their track record, this is a tough team to beat in a full playoff series. I mean, only a few teams have done it. So this is a team that I think is the favorite. They're deserving to be the favorite. And, I mean, right now, if I had to bet on one team to get out of the West, it's this Warriors team right now. I'm still going to stick with my Suns pick, but what they have shown me right now, Golden State looks very damn good, and it's going to be tough to beat them. So we'll see who takes on Golden State in the next round. It's either going to be the T-Wolves or the Grizzlies. That's going to be a fun series, whoever matches up against them. But, yeah, the Warriors looking to win another NBA title. Everybody thought the dynasty was dead. They might be entering a new one. Crazy, I know. Okay, we're going to talk some Lakers now. And I know you guys are probably thinking, why the hell are you going to bring up the Lakers? They're not in the playoffs. Let's not talk about this mess of a team. But I do want to bring up this news story that is quite interesting. And this just suggests how many problems internally the Lakers truly have. So there was a report that came out that the Lakers front office is internally placing blame on the King, LeBron James, and AD, Anthony Davis, for acquiring Russell Westbrook. Now, I knew from the start, without knowing anything, that LeBron and AD definitely had huge influence on whoever the Lakers got and the team that they put out there on the court. So they deserve blame. They deserve a lot of the blame. And you better believe both these guys tried to do whatever it could to convince management that they were going to get Russell Westbrook. And there was a report, too, saying that the Lakers had a chance at DeRozan, but ultimately they chose Westbrook. So this team really went with Russell Westbrook over DeMar DeRozan, and we saw what was the result. So instead of everybody placing blame on Russell Westbrook and this Lakers roster, I think this is, justified. Let's place blame on the guys who brought this roster together. Anthony Davis and LeBron James. They have to be the culprits of being the guys that ultimately were the demise of the Lakers season for supporting them with guys who clearly aren't it. I mean, you talk about a supporting cast of, an average age of 30 plus, and then you bring in a guy like Westbrook who you knew his play with your play wasn't going to necessarily fit, and we saw that. So we're going to see what happens with the Lakers, but what adds even more to the story is the fact that Westbrook deleted all of his photos on Instagram. But he did leave his avatar, his profile pic, which is him in a Lakers jersey. But I think this marriage is going to end. Some way, somehow. It's going to be tough because of the lucrative deal Westbrook is on. But this can't go on. I think it's a better fit for the Lakers to move on from Westbrook. And I want to see Westbrook get out of LA. I mean, I think it'd be good for his mental, toughness. I think it'd be good for his career. This was not a good fit. Lakers fans don't want to see Westbrook back. Westbrook, I think, deep down doesn't want to be back. So now the question is going to become, what kind of trade could happen this offseason? And I don't know. I don't know if there's too many teams out there that are going to sacrifice a whole ton to get a guy in Westbrook who might be entering the later part of his career. I think this is still a guy that does get unnecessary criticism, especially this season when it seemed like everybody in Lakerland was pointing the finger at him. But it's also a guy who, has proven that he's not necessarily a winner. And right now, I categorize him the same as James Harden. they're great individual players. They're going to go down as one of the best. But when it comes down to it, they're not going to go down as a winner. They're not going to go down as a guy that influenced the winning situation around him. You know, those are both great players in Harden and Westbrook that get the individual accolades, but they're proving right now that they're not the best teammate in terms of being that piece of the puzzle that wins the big one. So I wanted to bring this up because I know the Lakers are not in the playoffs, but I mean, it's interesting to see how that offseason is going to go for them. I mean, where's LeBron's head at? Does he still want to be here? Are they going to be able to move on from Westbrook? What's going to happen with Anthony Davis? A lot of rumors swirling in Lakerland, and we'll see how it all goes down this offseason after the NBA playoffs. Never a dull moment when talking about the Lakers. Okay, let's get to some picks. Let's get to some winners for tonight. 1-1 last night, trying to go 3-0 tonight. 3 games in the NBA. We're going to start with game number 1. Sixers, Raptors. Did a preview at the top of the show. You know I'm going with this one. Give me the Raptors plus 1.5. I think there's huge value here. I mean, the Raptors being a slight dog, given what's happened at home, going up against a Sixers team that looks rattled, that just got blown out in their building in Game 5. The Raptors, in my opinion, should have been the slight favorite here. We'll see if the line changes closer before tip-off, but I'm getting a 1.5. I'm taking it. The Raptors win this game outright. I truly think this series is destined for 7. And man, oh man, if we do get a Game 7 on Saturday, I don't even want to begin to imagine what that Philly crowd is going to look like if the Raptors open up that game on like a 10-2 run. That's going to be a hostile environment. So I like the Raptors to force this thing to a Game 7. They will inch one step closer to making history. Next game, Phoenix has a chance to close out the series on the road against the Pelicans. Vegas is actually giving the Pelicans their respect and flowers here. Spread's only -2 for the Suns. I thought it was going to be a bigger spread. Last time I checked, Scott Foster's an officiating, so that goes well for the Suns. The Suns looked a lot better last game. Mikal Bridges needed to step up with Devin Booker out, and he came through offensively. He had an amazing game. Chris Paul had a much better game. Jay Crowder stepped up, and that defense as a whole just looked more like the Suns' defense that we saw going around last season. Listen, you got to give the Pelicans all the respect in the world. This is a team that had no business being in the playoffs. 10 games under 500. I think their record was something like 36-46. They make the play-in. They get into the playoffs. And the fact that they even pushed a team that many people had, including myself, as the favorite to win the championship, to a 6th game, doesn't matter what happens here. This is going to go down as a very successful season for the Pelicans. So I like the Suns tonight to close it out. I think they just have too much experience on that team. I think Chris Paul is going to get those guys ready for this one. They do not want to play a Game 7 against the Pelicans. So Suns get it done -2. They close with this one in 6. And then the other game, this is going to be a very entertaining game. The Mavs taking on the Jazz. So Donovan Mitchell will be a go for tonight. There was questions about was he going to be ready. He's going to be in this one. Utah, they're going to be at home. And this might be the last time ever we see that core of the Jazz play together. There's a lot of talk right now that if the Jazz are unable to get past this first round, they're going to blow that thing up, and rightfully so. The fact that they weren't able to take a commanding 2-0 lead when the Mavs didn't have Luka Doncic, that was very disappointing. And now we're going to see if this Jazz team can fight to live another day. Can they give their home crowd a win to force this thing to a 7th game back at Dallas? I mean, if they don't, things could get ugly. I don't think it happens. I think Dallas closes this thing out in 6. That was my original prediction before Luka got injured. I said that Dallas was going to win this series in 6. I think Doncic has a big game. The Mavs, look for them to hit a ton of threes in this one, and I just do not trust this Jazz team whatsoever. This is a team that not only they're going to lose the game, but they're probably going to be in for major changes this offseason. So give me the Mavs +1. You're getting a little bit of value. You're getting the point. And, yeah, those are my picks. So just to recap here, I got Raptors +1.5. I got Suns -2. And I got the Mavericks +1. That is my 3-team parlay. Put some money on that. And hopefully you can be a winner just like me. And that will conclude today's show of Laying the Points with Luca Rosano. I'm your host, Luca Rosano, here on The Parlay. We come to you every single Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So definitely follow us on social media to keep the conversation rolling. And we'll catch you all again on tomorrow's show. We'll see what happens tonight. And we'll see if the Raptors can force that Game 7 on Saturday. Take care.